Okay, so this is where we were. Now we're going to start with summarizing um, crimes by year. And so I've copied this information to this particular file, and I've also zoomed it to 140 just in case if you're wondering why it looks different. And what are we doing here is we're trying to see the total crimes by year. So I've created two columns here, and you know how to create columns. I'm color coding this so each analysis is represented in different colors. So how do we calculate total crimes um, for 2011 and 12? So if you see the second column for each of these set of differently colored columns, you can see that this is a violent crime and this is a property crime. And if you combine these crimes, then that will give you the total crime for that year. Same with the 2012. So we'll start with how do you do that? Well, it's simple function. All formulas in Excel start with an equal sign. So type equal sign, then parentheses, right? And then you add these two cells. So we'll add it 2011 violent crime. Okay, you selected that cell, then enter the plus sign, then select the property crime cell for 2011. So it shows you clearly equals parenthesis D2 and E2. D2 is this cell, number representing the row, and the letter representing the column. And once you do that, close the parenthesis, enter. So this gives you the total crimes committed in 2011 as reported for this city. And we need to copy this to all other cities. So all you need to do for that is double click on this right bottom corner. Voila, it's done. You see that? Now we'll do the same for 2012. Again, we are uh, combining, adding the crimes committed that are violent and that are property related, add these two. So again, equal sign, parentheses, select the violent crime cell, use the plus sign, then property crime cell, close the parenthesis, enter. That's it, right? Now to copy it down to other cities, all you have to do is double click. So this is how you calculate the total crimes. And if you look at this, it will give you information about total crimes for each city for a year, right? Now, these are raw numbers. This may not give you more information, right? But in the next video, we will talk about calculating some other statistics like minimum and maximum. I can do it right here, but I'm just trying to make these short videos. So in the next video, we'll talk about how to generate minimum and maximum values for each of these. Okay, so now we're going to calculate the minimum, maximum, and range values. Remember, these are when you have quantitative variables, that's what you do. We do it for each of these variables, the population variable, violent crime variable, property crime, and so on and so forth each of the year. So for that, it's very simple. I've created um, um, I created a table with minimum, maximum, range as the values that you're calculating. And I'm going to use the cell under population of 2011 to see what is the minimum population and what's the maximum population. So equal sign as usual, then parentheses, um, then then you have to type in before parentheses minimum. Min is fine. So I'm going to actually caps it. It doesn't matter. You can do it with regular alphabets as well. Okay, minimum. Then you select all the cells that you're trying to find a minimum value from, right? And you can do that by just dragging the cell all around and close it, enter. So that's the minimum population value, right? And in order to copy it for the other variables, you have to, again, you cannot double click. If you double click here, it will copy it down. That's not what we want. Its formula is copied on this side. So you hold this bottom right corner of the cell and drag it all the way to the end of the variable list. Oops. See that? So that's how you generate minimum values for each of those variables. The maximum value is again similar. Equal sign, max, parentheses, Then you select the cells. Another way to select the cells is just click on the first cell, shift down arrow is another way. Again, there are different ways of doing it. Um, okay, so oh, there you go. Then close the parenthesis, enter. You have the maximum value. Now, what we do now here is drag this all the way to the right, and that's how the maximum values are um, created for each column. Now, the next thing to do is to create the range, which is a difference between the max and minimum, which will gives you a range of values there are. For that, you need to subtract the minimum value from the maximum value. And to do that, what you need to do is use this simple function of equal sign and parenthesis, just like doing math. Take the maximum value and minus minimum value, close the parentheses, enter. And you copy the same for other columns. That's it. You see that? This is how you do calculate the minimum, maximum, and the range for all the variables here. I'm going to stop here. In the next, we'll talk about the amount of change um, in crimes. That's what we'll talk about in the next slide, next video. Okay. So far we looked at the calculating the sums, right, and then calculating the minimum maximum range. Now we'll talk about how to generate meaningful information related to change in crimes from 2011 to 2012. The change in crimes specific to violent crimes and change in crimes specific to the property crimes, then total change in crimes from 11 to 12. So I've created these three columns here and gave it this color. You don't need to do that. I just did it so I can clearly show you distinctly what analysis we are running for each video. Okay, so what is violent crime change from 11 to 12? Well, you have number of violent crimes in 2011 in this column, and you have number of violent crimes in 2012. If you want to see the difference between these two, what you do is you subtract the new from the old, or subtract the old from the new. So violent crime 2012 minus violent crime 2011, that will give you the change in violent crime from 11 to 12. And you can do the same thing for property crimes. Then you can do the same thing for total crimes. Because remember, we already calculated the sums, the totals for 11 and 12. And if you subtract these two, then you'll get the 2012 one. So, and it is pretty easy. It's just like using a calculator. So we are looking at the violent crime change in the amount change, the actual number of changes in crime, reported crimes in a violent type. So equal sign, just simple arithmetic, close the open the parentheses. So VC change in 12 minus VC change in 11. So the VC change in 12 is right here. Do you see that? First cell, okay? Then you subtract the VC change in 11, right? Where is that VC change in 11? Okay? Then you close the parentheses, enter. So you can see that the violent change in the violent crime reported in Phoenix, right? There is a change of positive change of 1,369, meaning that there are 1,369 more cases reported in 2012 when compared to 2011. And we're just talking about the violent crimes. And we can do the same for the PC and the total crimes. Now, what we need to do now is copy it down. And you know how to do that. Yes, you're right. Double click. There you go. Now we're going to do this for the PC change. Again, equals, open parentheses, select the 2007 PC, 2012 PC. This is the property crime 2012, okay, minus property crime 2011. It's right here, right? So I'm going to select that, then close the parenthesis, enter. So you can see the property crimes actually reduced. That's why there is a negative number from 2011 to 2012 for the Phoenix city. We're going to copy it down all the way. There you go. Now, you can also calculate the change in numbers in terms of total crimes. And we already have total crimes for 11 and 12. What do you think we should do now? Yes, you're right. Equal sign, total crime for 2012, this one, minus total crime in 2011, which is this one. Close the parenthesis, enter. So the total crimes actually reduced from 11 to 12 because of the negative numbers. Again, we copy it down all the way. Voila. So this is how you calculate the change in numbers that you're interested in. So this is actual change in numbers. In the next slide, we'll talk about change in percentage in the next video. Okay, so in the last video, we talked about calculating raw changes, change in the number of crimes in terms of numbers. Now we need to convert this in terms of like how much big of a change is it in terms of percentages? Is it like a 1% increase in crime or 1% decrease in crime? So we're converting the raw numbers into percentages. Keep in mind, the original comparison is to 2011. From 2011, how much did the violent crime change? Well, we know they changed by 1,369. But what is that change in terms of percentage when compared to the original 2011 crime? So in order to do that, you need to um, calculate this this way. So equal sign, right? Now you're trying to see how much the change is from 2011, and this is violent crime, right? So I'm going to select the change in violent crime from 11 to 12 and compare it to the original 2011 violent crime. So divided it by 2011 violent crime, then close the parenthesis, enter. Now this is in percentage. Of course, this is out of 1. That's what it does. But when we change the cell type, you'll see that will convert into percentage. It's like 16.9%. So the violent crimes changed from 11 to 12 by 1,369 number. But what is that number? That number is equal to 69.9% increase. And we're gonna double click on this so it will copy it all the way down. And we do the same for PC. We know that the property crime rate decreased from 11 to 12 by 3,000 cases. But what is that 3,000 cases when compared to 2011? What is the percentage of it? To do that again, you take the VC change, PC change for 2000 for the change from 11 to 12 that we calculated, and see how much it is when compared to divided by the what do you say 2011 property crimes. You see that? Click enter. At any point, if you're not sure if you did the correct thing and selected the correct one, you need to double click on this and it will show you the formula here. So L2 and E2. So you divided this first one, PC, that's correct, PC change, and the red one is right here, which is crime, PC 2011. So we selected the correct slide. How about this one? VC change by VC11. So that's correct as well. This is to just double check. Now I'm gonna copy it. You know how to do that, right? Now the next thing is to see how much of a change there is from 11 to 12, not by the type of crime, but crimes in general. We know that the crimes reduced by 2,333 cases. But what is that in terms of percentage when compared to 2011? So to do that, it's the same thing, equal sign. Select the change from 11 to 12, divided by 2011 crime, right? And close the parentheses, hit enter. So it reduced by 3.2%. Again, this is out of 1. We need to convert this into out of 100. So double click. There you go. So now that we have this, right, now we need to convert this into percentage. To do that, you need to select these 3 columns, right? Then right click on one of the column headers, okay? Then click on Format Cells. Remember, we are converting those cells into percentage type. So we're going to select the category as percentage and change the decimal to 1. Click OK. Now it's more meaningful. Do you see that? It is converted the decimals out of 1 into out of 100. Now you can clearly see that overall crimes for Phoenix decreased by 3.2% from 11 to 12. Out of which that decrease actually comes from the PC. And in fact, the violent crimes increased by 16.9% from 11 to 12. So this is some meaningful information. This is how you make sense of it. So we just talked about percentage change. Now we'll talk about running rates, then the ratios that we discussed in the previous unit. Okay, so now we'll talk about rates. Rates are a way of giving the prevalence of something. So, for instance, if you're talking about violent crimes in 11 and 12, you talked about how much it changed, but without taking into account how big of a city it is and what the population is. Once you compare the crimes, um, based on the population, then you'll have more meaningful information about how many crimes per X number of individuals in a city. That's more intuitive, meaningful information. So we usually take a number and see how many crimes out of every 100 individuals or 100,000 individuals. It's usually in the FBI reports they provide like how many number of crimes per 100,000 individuals in a city. So that's one benchmark, one way of comparing it. And to do that, first you need to calculate the rate per capita, meaning how many crimes per individual. For every individual in the population, how many crimes there are, then convert that into per 100,000. And we'll start with this first, then we'll talk about how to convert that into per 100,000. Now it's pretty simple. Remember, we're talking about violent crimes um, out of population per member. So you take the violent crime for that city and divide it by the population for that city, right? So equal sign, open parentheses, the violent crime in this city and we are in 2012. You can do the same thing for 11, but for simplification, I'm just working on 12 here. So the violent crime for 2012 uh, is, where is it? Violent crime. Yep, there you go. Then divided by how many crimes per individual. So you divide it by population for 2012. Then close the parentheses. That's what it is. So it's basically 0.00637 crimes per person. This is not meaningful, right? So that's when we'll convert this into per 100,000 individuals, um, which is a usual standard. Now, again, to copy it down, you know what to do. That's correct. Then you can do the same for the property crimes per capita. So equal sign, um, number of property crimes in 2012. It's right here. Out of population for 2012 is right here, right? Enter. And this again is not meaningful because it's out of one person, how many crimes. We have to see out of 100,000, which we'll do next. So again, copy this, done. And again, 2012 total crime per capita is also important to think about. And we already have the total crime for 2012 that we calculated using sums, right? So we will look at the total crimes in 2012, it's right here, divided by the total population in 2012. So you'll know total crimes per individual, which is per capita, which again is not so meaningful because it's a one individual. There are fewer crimes than there are number of individuals. That's why you have decimal points here. So again, you'll double click. That's how it's done. So this is out of per capita, right? Per one person. Now we have to see the rate is more meaningful when you have standardized ways, and the way FBI does this is by comparing it to 100,000 individuals in a city. To do that, it's pretty simple. Take the per capita and multiply it by 100,000 because 100,000 is the benchmark you're using. So this is a per capita for 2012 violent crimes. So you will multiply this number, multiply is the star sign about the 8 number, okay? 100,000, 100,000, 1, 2, 3. Close the parenthesis. There you go. This is more meaningful, right? 636 cases, violent crime cases for every 100,000 individuals. I can copy this all the way down. There you go. And you can do the same for the property crimes. How many property crimes per 100,000? Equal sign. Then you're going to look at the per capita for um, property crimes, multiply it by 100,000. 1, 2, 3. Close the parenthesis, enter. You see that? And double click. So you can see there are more property related crimes than there are the violent crimes per 100,000 individuals. Double click. That's done. Now you can do the same thing for total crimes per 100,000 individuals by using per capita. And same thing, equals. Then select the cell, multiply it by 100,000, close the parenthesis, hit enter. There you go. So in 2012, there were 4,728 cases per every 100,000 individuals in a city of, I think, what was the city? Oops. You have to wait, right? Okay. There you go. Where did it go? Oh, sorry about that. I'm going to just, I don't know, it's because it's in the corner. Well, another way to do it is just shift all the way down and control D, it'll copy it down. It's copied down the formula. Okay, now here's another thing. It's like looking messy, right? This one has 3 decimal point, this has 2, and this has 1 decimal point. So we're gonna make these things simpler by, again, we'll use the same formula of selecting this, clicking on the format cells, right click, and use, these are numbers, right? So we're gonna say, where is the number? Number, and change it to 1 decimal point. There you go. You see that? Now it's more meaningful. Or you can get rid of the decimals as a whole. Then you can look at how many cases. Um, so for instance, the first city of Phoenix, right? Um, um, so there were 636 cases per 100,000 cases. So there are more violent crime cases than PC. Um, and these two should add up to this number. Okay, so in the next video, we'll talk about, this was about rates, comparing it to total number of population, the out of the population. In the next one, we'll talk about ratios, where we'll take 2 categories and say how often 2 categories occur, like how many violent crimes per every property crime or vice versa. So the ratios, that's what we'll talk about in the next video. Okay, in this video we'll talk about ratios. So if you want to know in each city how often property crimes are committed when compared to violent crimes, so it's the property crime versus violent crime ratio. To know that, it's very simple for each year. For each year, like 2012, what was the ratio of property versus violent crime, and what was it for 2012? To do that, basically, you will use the data cell specific to property crime for that year and violent crime, and calculate the ratio, and that tells us how often one occurs in correspondence with the other. And I'm going to do that here for 2011. So we're going to use these 3 cells, right? These cells, basically these 2 cells, violent and property. So equal sign, and we're calculating how many property crimes for every violent crime. That's the point. Equal sign, parenthesis open. Now 2011 property crime is right here, divided by 2011 violent crime. Close the parenthesis, hit enter. So it's 7.9. In other words, there was 8 property crimes for every violent crime. And I'm going to copy this all the way down. Oops, there's something wrong with this. Okay. No, I don't know what happened today. It's probably because I'm going to use my usual formula of taking it all. Oh, I know why. Because I zoomed it maybe. Okay, control down, control D will copy it down. It's the same thing basically. Then for 2012 then, property crime for 2012 is right here, divided by violent crime for 2012 right here. Close the parenthesis, hit enter. Okay, I'm going to try one more time if I can copy this the usual way. Okay, now I did it. Okay, so now again, if you see, these have like different decimal points. Some have 2 decimal points, 3, and so on. 3 here, right? We're going to change it. It's very simple. Select the columns, right click, format cells, right? Use a number, and I'm going to make it 1, but you can also go to 0. Let's do 0. So for every one one violent crime, there are 8 property crimes. So that's how you do it, and you then in for which city has more ratio, by sorting. And again, we'll talk about sorting in a different video. Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to calculate the percent of total. So we'll look at especially the violent crimes and see what percent of violent crimes in 2011, what percent of crimes are violent crimes. So to the how much do the violent crimes account to out of the total crimes? So the percentage of violent crimes in 2012 and 2012, 11. So let's look at the 11 first. Now again, we're looking at violent crimes percent of total. So you need to look at total and in comparison to the violent crime. So the violent crime for 2011 is right here. You see that? Sorry, right here. And the total for 2011 is right here. So you divide this and over that by this, you'll get the percent of total. So violent crime in 2011 equals parentheses, right? Violent crimes in 2011 is this for this city. Divide that by total crimes for 2011, which is right here, right? And close the parenthesis, hit enter. There you go. And double click. Again, this is not in percentage, this is out of proportion, it's out of 1. So we can convert that soon. So double click, you copied that, and you do the same for 2012. So what percentage of all cases in 2012 are violent crimes? So equals, open parentheses, violent crime in 2012 is right here, divided by total number of crimes for 2012, which is right here, and close the parentheses and hit enter. There you go. Then you double click, and that's copied. Now this is not in percentage, it's out of 1. Percentage is changing it out of 100. So, and same thing, select these 2 columns, right click on one of the header columns right here, then format editing, format cells, sorry, and then click the percentage and keep a single decimal point. Click OK. There you go. So you can see that 11% of crimes were violent crimes in 2011 for that city, and whereas 13% for the same city in 2012. And you can compare that with other cities. Okay, so that's about percent of total. And the last thing that we'll talk about would be the some other summarizing tips by using a totally different data file. Okay, for this particular part of a few more things, we will use a different data set, and that's this comparisons Excel sheet. And I've downloaded it, and I'll open it, and we will go from there. Okay, so now that I downloaded the data, here is the data file. Now this is about the presidential staff salaries, and the first column gives information about the name of the individual, then their status, then the salary, and pay basis, and the title and the position. So we'll try to calculate some. We are interested in numbers, right? So this salary, this is what we're interested in. So we will try to go all the way down to the bottom of this um, column, and I've created this small table to calculate total pay, mean pay, sorry, total pay, mean pay, and the median pay. So for the total pay, you actually summing it up. So you're gonna click OK, sum, then you add this. The different ways of doing it, one way would be to start from here and click on Shift and take the upward arrow all the way up to the first cell, not the one with the header, but the one below it. So the second row. So you can look at the numbers on the left. It's in 316 now. I'm still waiting 200s. Can keep hitting the. I held the Shift button and I'm clicking on the upward arrow button till I go to number 2. There could be easy way, but with the Mac, I'm not sure the key, so about the key, so I'm just using that. So almost there. Okay, so we're not selecting the header. So then close the parenthesis, then hit enter. So this will give you, if you want to make sure if that's the right one, you can double click on it. Okay, so this is that. And we're going to calculate the mean and the median. And this is what we discussed in the previous um, unit. Now, instead of doing that, once we know what the values are, see this is selected correctly. And the values are basically C2, C column, and row number 2. That's where the data is starting. So we can actually use this C2, C461 for all of these calculations. So let's do mean then. Mean is written as average in Excel. So again, it doesn't matter if you're using caps or not. I'm going to use caps so you can read it carefully and view it. So average. Then I select the cells, right? Remember what was it? C2 colon C461. You see that? That's where it is. It can be 461 to C2 or C2 4, it doesn't matter. Okay. So that's the average pay. Let's calculate the median. Oh, same thing. Median, so median. And we know the numbers already. C2 colon C461. Close the parentheses. Here it is. So we know that on average, the presidential staff members earn $82,000 per year, and the median is most of them earn not the most, but the middlemost observation. The median most observation 70, and you can see that these two numbers are close to each other. What it means is that the distribution is not skewed, meaning that it is symmetric. And symmetric distributions usually take the form of a normal curve, saying that there are more people in and around 80K, and very few people far away from it, and in terms of less or more. So very few people for 10,000 and very few people with 200,000. Most of the people are centered around mean and median, 80,000, because these are close. Um, for skewed distributions, what happens is it will either be right skewed or left skewed. So um, if it's a right skewed, I'll talk more about those discussions in another video maybe. Okie dokie, this is how you do the other stuff like total, which is sum, mean, and median. You know what? You can also do standard deviation and other things. Let me show you real quick. Uh, for standard deviation, you have to do equals STDEV and just use those numbers, C2 to C461, am I correct? Yes, close it. And there are a lot of things you can do. Again, you can change the decimal points to 2 to make it, um, or you can just select this here and change it to no decimal points. That also works. Okay, and what else can you do? As usual, minimum, maximum, range, all those things. Um, okay, I'm going to stop the video here. Okay, so in this short video, we're going to do some sorting. And for this one, I'm using the same data file that we used and created in Unit 3.9, the crimes data file. So that's why you see this color coding and everything. Okay, so what is sorting? Well, you can rearrange the ordering of these rows um, by any column in ascending, descending order, increase or decrease in number. You can do whatever you want in terms of sorting these cases. The only thing you need to be careful though is that you select only the data that you want to sort. So this way and never select the summary data of this kind, only the raw data. Okay, so let's try to answer some questions like which city has the highest increase in property crimes, or which city had the lowest violent crimes in 2012. So you can answer many questions by ordering them and looking at the highest or the lowest values. So let's start with trying to see violent cases per 100,000 in 2012, right? Um, let's make a total number of cases in 2012 and see which state has or which city has the highest. So let's sort by that. For that, you need to select the entire only data set, not the summary sets like these ones. So once we have selected, now what you're doing is sorting. For sorting, you need to use the data tab right here, right? And you see this big sort button. You need to click on that. Once you click on it, then you will see different options. Again, I played with this. That's why you see this. Let me delete that. Okay. How do you do that? Well, you have to select the column that you want to sort by. So let's say 2012 crime. Let's sort these cases or sort these observations by 2012 crimes. So keep in mind, you need to select this. If it's not selected, it will consider the first row as also a data point, but it's a header for us, and we are actually sorting it by the header, so that you'll sort by the column and you select the name of the header you want. So if you want the total um, say where is it? Total crimes in 2012. And you want to look at the largest one. So you can be smallest to largest, largest to smallest, whatever question you're interested in. I want to know um, which city has the largest or the highest number of crimes. Once you click on that, now the data gets sorted, right? And seems like New York City has the highest crime in 2012. And the least being for El Paso. You see that? So let's do sorting of the opposite kind. So we click on that and go from smallest to largest, right? So it changed. Now El Paso comes at the top and New York City go to the bottom. Now you can sort it by any column of interest. Let's say, let's look at violent crimes per 100,000 individuals in 2012. So 2012 violent crime cases per 100,000 individuals. So let's see which city has the highest violent crimes per 100,000 individuals in the population. And we already discussed how to create this, so I'm not going to talk about that. So we're interested in this, but you need to select all these cells except the summary cells, right? And then keep in mind we're interested in violent crime per 100K for 2012. So click on sort and now select, again you have to double check this is clicked. Then click on, where is it? Violent crime per 100,000. 2012 violent crime per 100,000. You see that? Let's change it to, and make sure it's sorted on the values. If there are no values, like if you want to sort by state, then it's to be text. Okay, largest to smallest. Click OK. Now the data gets sorted, and um, you can see that this particular state, what is it? Detroit. You see that? Detroit has the highest violent crimes per 100,000 individuals, and the lowest being here, San Jose. You see that? Let's see if we can answer other questions. Let's talk about which city had the highest total crime rate in 2012. We actually did that, right? Um, we'll do it again. Highest um, total crime per 100K. Oh, this is total crime per 100K. Let's do this one. Okay. Again, it's pretty simple. Sort, select total crime per 100K. Let's do smallest to largest and see which city is the smallest. Um, it's sorted by this. So New York City is smallest in terms of total number of crimes per 100,000, whereas Memphis has the highest number of cases, violent cases per 100,000. So you can answer such questions by working with this one. Now, here's another thing. You can also sort on multiple criteria. For instance, you can sort by state and city. I'll show you how to do that. Again, you have to select the data file. Oops. And click on the sort button and make sure this is selected. So the first thing you want to select is by the state, right? It doesn't matter even if it's values. Sort on values. I don't know. Ooh, let's not forget about that. Okay, then go from. Oh, it automatically selected the text. My bad. Okay, it goes from alphabetical order A to Z. So the starting with A would be the first state. Then within that, if there are multiple cities, right, we can sort that by city. So you're just adding another layer to it. So state by city, then click OK. Then you'll see that Arizona has one city, California has several cities, and within that, these are arranged in the alphabetical order. So, these are some things you can do with the sorting function. I hope you liked it. Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to do filtering. And this is an important function and very fun uh, um, to learn function. So for this, we are using the same the data set that we used in 3.9, not the crimes one, but the later one for more summarizing. We used the White House staff file. So that's what I'm using here. Once you open the file, now the question is, how do you filter it? Now it's pretty simple. You just need to click somewhere in the data file in under one of these columns and just go to the data tab, right? And click on, do you see this big funnel button? So just click on that. Then you'll see each column has this drop down menu, right? That means that this file is the columns are, you can filter the columns now. So what do you mean by filter the columns? Well, we can filter the columns based on any criteria. For instance, let's look at the status. Column B has A has the names and B has the status of employees, and very few of them are detailees, are temporary employees, not the permanent ones. So let's try to sort. Let's try to filter out the employees and only look at these hidden detailee kind of status. So how do you do that? We need to click on that um, the downward arrow button, and then do you see that everything is selected in the sense that all the values in this particular column are listed. So you unselect it, then only select those values, detailees and employees, right? We're just selecting the detailees. Voila, you see that there are 22 observations, and I can say 28 observations. So I can say that by looking at in the Windows it will be on the right bottom, but in Mac it is at the left bottom. So only 28 rows are being shown out of 460 data points. So there are 460 rows, but 20 are shown. So and you can go other way around where you can only look at the employees, right? But this is more interesting, I guess. So I'm gonna leave that in. Okay. Now here's the other thing, other important thing about how to know that not every row is selected here, right? The rows that has employee information or those rows with employee as a status, those are hidden. And these highlighted rows that usually don't see suggest that there is more data to it, and this is the filter data. Okay, and another thing to show that filtering is on is when you have these downward arrows, and this particular thing actually shows a funnel. You see that here, right? That means that this particular column is filtered, and there's more to data than this. Um, what else can we say? Uh, let's try to. We can also filter it based on multiple criterion, right? For instance, we can look at and filter out only those data sets that have a specific value. For instance, I want to know only those people, the detailees, who earn $100,000 or more. Okay, there are 28 observations. Let's only look at the people who earn $100,000 or more. Okay, so what I do now is go to the salary, right? Then here is a filtering option. Do you see that? Within that, there are different options, right? I'm going to choose one option. Let's say greater than or equal to. And I put $100,000 here. We don't need dollars or comma. You just like 100,000. So 5 zeros. So then, voila, you see that now we have 22 observations. So in Windows, I think there's a OK option, but this is Mac, so I don't have any options. I'm just leave it. So 22 observations. So these 22 people actually earn 100,000 or more who are detailees. Again, one more other thing you can do is if you want to copy this one and paste it somewhere, it will paste everything, even the hidden ones. But if you just want to copy the unhidden one, only the ones that are you interested after filtering. Again, these two are filtered. You can see that. What you can do is click on this column and select the table you want to copy, right click, copy, and let's create a new sheet and click on it, right click and just paste. So it just copied those 22 observations with the column. You see that? So and without this filtering, you cannot just copy that. And then whenever something is copied, you can see these active zones represented here. Let me see if there is anything else that we can do in terms of sorting. Well, I think that's it. That's about sorting. And there are many other things. These are like basic things I want you to know because when you work on the project, these are the things that will help you make some quick decisions. So thank you. Okay. So for this particular grouping and summarizing, um, we're going to use the data specific to the drugs and that were seized by different states or countries in the world. And this information, these drugs that were seized by different personnel were sent to DEA, and they tested that. So this is from year 2007, number of times as a function of the state or the country from where this particular seizure was done. Um, that's the first column. Second column is the method of acquisition. Third column is the actual drug that was seized. Then on a 1 to 100 point scale, the potency of the drug. Then the net weight of the drug that was seized for each time it was seized, then the year in which it was seized and the month in which it was seized. So we'll run some three basic kinds of um, grouping and summarizing. Remember the pivot table thing? That's what we'll do. We'll run pivot tables or create pivot tables. First, we'll try to see how often have these states or countries reported or seized. And so that's the simple pivot table. First, we'll run that. Okay. So for that, you just need to click on the Insert tab and Pivot Table option. Then click OK. Then it will create a new um, tab. Let's call that state by um, count, like how many times does each state um, reported it or each country reported it. So for that, you have all the columns here, and you'll select the state in the and move it to the rows section. Then you select the state again to see how many times each state is has reported it, then put it in the values. And automatically it takes it to count, and that's what we want. And if you look at it here, um, Alaska with AK here has reported 19 times or seized 19 times drugs. And so there are 19 observations in 2017. That's what it refers to. Now we can sort this one. If you click on anywhere in this column, if you click on one of the cells and right click and go to sort option and select it from the largest to smallest, then it will rearrange and sort it, and it seems like California is the state with the most seized drugs, instances of most instances of drug being seized, 1,385 times. Well, you also have to take into account the size of the state. With more states, there could be more instances. So that should be taken into account when you make inferences. So this is specific things, and also you can do a lot with this. If there are decimal points you want to get rid of, you can select the column, right click. Remember we talked about formatting cells and changing it to numbers and changing the decimal points. You can do all that with this. Okay, so now we'll run a different pivot table. So we'll go back to the original sheet, right? Now we're going to run the state by potency, like which state has the highest potency seizure um, in terms of drug potency. So again, you go to Insert, Pivot Table, and click OK. It'll open a new tab. I'm going to name it as State by Potency. Okay. Now here you can see that it is state by potency, so I'm going to put state in the rows, and I want the values, potency in the values. So I'll know each state, what's the potency. Um, Here you need to understand that the potency here is the is 0 to 1. And what the Excel did is, because these are numbers, it actually summed it up. We don't want that. We want the average potency as a function of state. What it did is it just summed it up. So those states with highest seizures will have more potency, right? But because it's sum, not average, so we need to calculate the average for each state. So we're going to click on this I button here and change that from summary to average. Then click OK. Now you can see that it is calculated the average. But there are several decimal points here, right? This is confusing. So I'm going to change that by selecting on this particular column. I know this changes stuff, don't worry. We'll come back to that. And then right click, format cells, then select number and use, how about we don't need any decimal points, I guess, or just one decimal point. Okay, click OK. Now this is more meaningful. Now here is what you can do. By clicking anywhere on this column, you can right click and sort it by most potency, right? Largest first. So now you can see this particular state has the highest potency of 85, followed by TT. I think it refers to some other country, if I'm not wrong, Paris or something. That has the potency of 80, number 2, followed by Massachusetts, which has the highest potency of 75. This is the average um, potency in the sorted in terms of highest to lowest. So that's one thing. The last thing we're going to run now, we're going back to the original sheet is state by net weight. So for that, we need to go to insert and go to pivot table, click OK, and then move the stuffs around. Let me check if we have enough time. Okay, I think you have a few more minutes, so we can still use the same video. So now what you're doing is state by net weight. How much did each state seize in terms of the amount of the drug? So I'm gonna put the state here in the rows column and the net weight here in the values column, because we are interested in the total amount of drugs that being seized in a given state. The sum is perfect, and that's what we have. Then when we look at it, that's what it shows, right? Now what I'm going to do is there are some decimal points. I don't want these decimal points. In fact, I want some commas to make more sense of this. So I'm going to select this, and what do we do next? Right click. I've selected the column and right click, format cells. Then I change it to numbers, and I don't want any decimal points actually. And I'll use commas. Then click OK. Now you can see the first observation, Alaska as 3,105 pounds. So what I'll do now is sort it. Where is sort? Oh yeah, for sort you have to select individual cell. Then it sorts the entire column. Okay, so sort, sort, sort. There you go. Largest to smallest. Let's see which state sees the most. California makes sense, right? 974,000 974,000 pounds of drug um, in 1 year. And it makes sense given the larger population, bigger population, larger area of California. The second most is this state, and third is Texas, and so on and so forth. Well, those are the three kinds of grouping and summarizing kind of stuff you can do with Excel. And that's it. I hope you liked it. Let me save this as state by weight. Okay, there you go. Thank you.